Welcome to the week that was, but we mostly wish it wasn't, for the week ending March 27th, 2026. This is a weekly roundup of the highlights and lowlights and major stories about campus anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. This week I had around 45 stories to choose from. If something is happening in your neck of the woods, please be sure to let me know. I'm your host, Andrew Pessin. I am a professor. Please don't hate me. For more about me and my work, visit andrewpessin.com. For all the details of today's stories and loads more stories, please follow me on X at Andrew Pessin. Just a reminder, I have launched the Institute for the Critical Study of Anti-Zionism. Please follow us at icsa.substack.com. That's icsa.substack.com. And if you are interested in getting involved as a scholar, as a collaborator, or as a sponsor, please be sure to get in touch. Okay, let's get to the news. Start with a bit of good news. Touro University has announced their launch of an anti-Semitism institute to battle anti-Semitism in academia. Somewhat less good news, Qatar has tripled its spending on U.S. universities just in the past year to $1.2 billion. An important organization called ISCAP has been tracking that Arab and especially Qatar money and its influence on our universities. Harvard very much in the news this week. The Education Department has launched two more investigations into Harvard admissions policies to see if they complied with earlier rulings about affirmative action and to deal with anti-Semitism. At the same time, the Department of Justice filed yet another anti-Semitism lawsuit against Harvard this past week, which of course prompted 120 Jewish Harvard faculty and staff to condemn the Department of Justice for that lawsuit, seeing it as an administrative power grab disproportionate to the problem. You get to decide how proportionate it is to the problem. That same week, a Harvard Business School professor who had participated in anti-Israel protests last year, including at the library, is now teaching a case in his class, making the case for divesting from Israeli and other companies due to their complicity in the crisis in Gaza. Colombia not wanting to be left out of the headlines. The House Commerce Committee is now investigating Colombia for civil rights violations related to anti-Semitism. And it might have something to do with the following that this week Colombia announced that they have selected a Harvard professor to fill Rashid Khalidi's now vacated endowed chair, the Edward Said chair there. The person they chose was dismissed from her role as Harvard's at the head of Harvard's Center for Middle East Studies because of allegations of anti-Semitic harassment. Indeed, administrators at Harvard themselves flagged panels she organized as being insufficiently balanced and very likely anti-Semitic. So Harvard got rid of her, and Columbia promptly hired her. Meanwhile, at Columbia, the Young Democratic Socialists of America, the chapter there, says that it is working to, quote, plan actions and liaise with Columbia University Apartheid Divest, the coalition student group that was banned by the university in 2024 for its disruptive and anti-Semitic activities, and that most recently popped up to wish death to America after President Trump decapitated the Iranian leadership a few weeks ago. This was notable because Colombia has a zero tolerance policy against dealing with groups like QAD. And to their credit, they did respond by putting the Young Democratic Socialists of America chapter on interim suspension. You're not allowed to liaise with QAD. UCLA also picking up some Harvard rejects. They have tapped the uh, a former director of a Harvard center who was accused of anti-Semitism as well, to be their next public health dean. The University of Wisconsin-Madison was busy this past week or so. The student government initially had a long debate over a divestment bill, which for some reason didn't reach a conclusion. However, during the course of the debate, one of the key members urged in an email that they shouldn't extend the speaking time past 45 minutes, because, quote, the proportion of Zios rises as the speaker lists go on. And Wisconsin senior remarked, declaring that the speaker list is too full of Zios and because too many Jews are on it, thus colluding to not allow them time to speak, is in and of itself the definition of discrimination based on religion and ethnicity. They did, subsequent night, come back and affirm the BDS resolution. They passed the BDS resolution, which the school administration then disavowed. In Canada, Vanier College canceled a planned Holocaust memorial because it was too political. There was tremendous anti-Zionist pressure to cancel this, and they succumbed. Also in Canada, McGill University, the law students there voted in favor of an academic and cultural boycott of Israel. The school administration did the right thing and condemned that. Meanwhile, three Belgian universities, Ghent University and two others I can't easily pronounce, have announced that they will confer a joint honorary degree, an honorary doctorate, upon Francesca Albanese, the UN Special Rapporteur on the Palestinian territories, whose job is basically 24/7 to bash Israel as much as she can. She has widely been accused of anti-Semitism. Perhaps it was for remarks such as the recent one when she claimed that Israel was the enemy of the whole world. But apparently that was enough to qualify her for honorary doctorates from three Belgian universities. Scotland University of Edinburgh, anti-Israel students there this past week occupied a school building demanding divestment after a student referendum had shown 97% support for BDS there. In the lawsuit legal department, as mentioned, Harvard and Columbia are facing legal action, but UCLA was slapped with yet another lawsuit for stonewalling a public records request related to an activist in residence who demanded during a mandatory lecture at UCLA's medical school that students pray to, quote, Mama Earth and chant Free, Free Palestine. I can't figure out which is crazier, the Mama Earth or the Free, Free Palestine. The Art Institute of Chicago, which was facing an anti-Semitism lawsuit itself, well, that lawsuit has now been dismissed due to a First Amendment protecting an extraordinary amount of vile and threatening behavior. If you go read that document, it is stunning, in my opinion, not a legal expert, but how the judge determined that the First Amendment protects just absolutely vile and threatening behavior. Texas State University, a philosophy professor there, has sued the university, asserting that the school violated his constitutional rights by ending his contract after he gave a talk on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict off campus in another state, at which some sort of fisticuffs or fight broke out. Based on my understanding of that case, I actually happen to side with him in this moment. Students for Justice in Palestine at UC Berkeley have been very busy the last couple of weeks, really getting their terrorism on, in my humble opinion. So, in this past week, they promoted a video of armed terrorists handing out sweets to celebrate the end of Ramadan. And they also took to Instagram to share a video of a PIJ, Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorist, and glorify terrorism. They have him speaking to people, explaining how armed resistance is the only way. In the BDS department, there was a victory for our side this week. San Jose City Council unanimously rejected an effort to divest from Israel. K through 12, ever frightening. New York City, a lawsuit was filed in this past week documenting anti-Semitic teens in this Brooklyn high school terrorizing a Jewish teacher with Hitler jabs and death threats while the school refuses to discipline them. This was Origins High School in Brooklyn. Also, New York City K through 12, New York City Educators for Palestine are planning to do a second children's teach-in because you need to get those kindergartners hating Israel as quickly as possible. Philadelphia K through 12. This week, the National Jewish Advocacy Center and the Deborah Project sued the Department of Education for failing to enforce its own settlement with the Philadelphia School District over the rampant anti-Semitism there. And finally, in the naughty professors department, I guess we already had one or two in this one, UCLA screenwriting professor openly brands Jews a parasite class, promotes medieval blood libels suggesting that they practice child sacrifice, and calls for the destruction of Israel, the United States, and the, quote, Western Zionist imperial world order. So UCLA sounds like a very happy place these days. That's the news, unfortunately. Tune in next week to see what fresh horrors next week may bring. Again, I'm your host, Andrew Pessin at andrewpessin.com, and hoping everyone manages to keep it together until next time. And of course, happy Pesach.